Welcome to Malifaux University. Beta look at Banished. In this video, we'll take a look at the beta version of the brand new Banished models released for playtesting on Thursday, May 2nd and updated every week since then. We don't know much about the lore and background of these characters, other than they are released from their undersea prison beyond the bayou due to recent Burning Man activity. This is one of two keywords that will be included in the new two-player starter box when it is released later this year. The artwork reflects a group of models that will likely be included in that starter box. They will be pre-assembled for ease of use for players new to the game who will need to just glue them onto their bases to get playing. Some players sneer at pre-assembled models, but whatever. The plan, as far as I understand it, is to release the one version of the Master with a group of models, and then later release another box with the other titled version of the Master with another set of models. And between the two boxes, you'll have most, if not all, of the models for that keyword. The beta cards for this keyword follow this pattern. In one set, we have the Silken King, Long Live, his totem, Urchin, the Colony, the Silent Siren, and 3 Shorebound Sentinels. What will probably come in a later release is the Silken King, Colossus, his totem, Abyssal Anchor, henchman, Dynast Bram, the Coronator of the Crown, 3 Gift of Thorns peons, and 3 crowned minions. As we get into it, you'll see that these two sets of models have pretty different playstyles. Also of note, these models have nothing to do with the aquatic-themed Nightmare edition of Nekema and the Nephilim models that came out a couple of years ago in the Deepest Depths and Blood in the Water boxes. Those all count as Nephilim models, and these Banished are an entirely separate keyword, though they would look pretty cool on the table together. So if you have them, perhaps you could use them as proxies. So now, let's look at these cards. The Silken King, Long Live, comes with the Rising Tide crew card. This gives all Banished models in your crew the Undertow ability, letting them remove a nearby scheme marker to put a negative modifier on an enemy's defense against your attack. This has to be one of your scheme markers unless you drain a soul stone. Then you can remove an enemy scheme marker up to 2 inches away, which can be a cool way of depriving your opponent of victory points, even if you don't care about the outcome of the attack. The next action on the card is Swept Away. This is a signature action that drains a soul stone to use, does 3 damage, and moves the target 2 inches for every raise it receives. You then get to put your model into base contact with that model, which really is the theme of this crew. Movement for your models and your opponents. This crew card also uses Injured, Shielded, and Hasten tokens, so this is all ordinary stuff. The Silken King, Long Live, has the Resilient ability, which is a physical defense ability that reduces raises in attacks against him. Most of the Banished models have this ability, so get used to remembering it. Royal Escort lets you drain a soul stone when you activate the Silken King to get 5 inches of free movement for the King and 2 other Banished models. Coral Carapace is a cool ability that buffs shielded tokens on the Silken King, reducing 2 damage for each one. On the back, the Silken King has a Sacrificial Dagger melee attack that does 3 damage. It has 2 triggers, but the basic effect is cool enough, in that you infuse a soul stone for every raise this attack has, so you will definitely want to cheat in your strongest cards when you use this attack. This would also be a good time to use the Undertow ability from the crew card to put a negative modifier on your opponent's duel. But you may want to use the Lost to the Deep magical attack first. This does 3 damage and might force your opponent to discard a card, but getting the Mask trigger moves the target and makes a scheme marker, which can help you with Undertow. Alternatively, the Tome trigger lets you take the Lost to the Deep attack again, drawing range and line of sight from the model you just hit with it. The Storm Surge tactical action has an 8-inch range and moves a friendly model towards a scheme marker. That scheme marker doesn't have to be within that 8 inches, just within the target model's line of sight. Since it doesn't say other friendly model, you can use this to get more movement out of the Silken King, and if you drain 2 soul stones for the Blood in the Water trigger, the model you move can then declare the charge action. Just make sure you don't move it into engagement before you get to the trigger. The Cleansing the Waters trigger from a crow is also cool in that it removes a marker you moved through with this action. So if you moved your model through an enemy scheme marker, or even get it to stand on it, you can remove it without having to take the interact action. Long live the Silken King's totem is the Urchin. His Cloaking Veil ability makes concealing terrain around him that friendly models can choose to ignore if they wish. His Cruel Sickle attack does just 1 damage, but has a raise value of 3, so will be fairly easy to increase. Obscene Ritual lets Urchin throw out a scheme marker up to 6 inches away, which is handy for the Undertow ability, and nearby members of his crew can get shielded and hasten tokens. Lastly, Tap the Leyline drains a soulstone, but lets Urchin draw 2 cards and discard 1. The Colony is a size 3 model on a 50mm base. Between floating mass and trailing stingers, it can move through enemy models and give one an injured token. The Engulf melee attack does 3 damage, and 2 of its triggers go back to the theme of moving models around. Tidal Blast has an 8-inch range and can move models with the Knock Aside trigger, and the Drift with the Tide tactical action can move the Colony another 6 inches and a member of its crew another 3. The Silent Siren's only ability is a Demise ability, which means it gets used when the model is killed. Knowledge Passed On says that when the Silent Siren is killed, you draw 2 cards and give shielded and hasten tokens to all friendly models within 3 inches. It doesn't say allied models, so even versatile and out-of-keyword models in your crew get the tokens. Chitinous Claws do 2 damage, 3 with the trigger, but have a 0-inch range, so you'll have to be in base contact to use them. Command from the Depths, on the other hand, has an 8-inch range and is what we call an Obey type action. This lets you control the target model and have it do an action. This can be something printed on its card, something from its crew card, or a general action like Interact or Charge. A special bonus is that the chosen action ignores engagement, so even if the target is engaged, you can have it interact, charge, or use a missile attack. Keep in mind that if you control an enemy model like this and have it interact to make a scheme marker, that scheme marker is friendly to the Banished crew since you're the one controlling the action. Hardened Husk can target only Banished models in your crew and gives the target a shielded token. You can use this on the Silent Siren itself, but if you target another model and get the Mask trigger, you get to put the Silent Siren into base contact with the other model. If you drain a Soulstone when you take this action, the targeted model gets to take a free action. Last in this group of models, we have the Shorebound Sentinels. These speedy guys are resilient and have a Tempest Blade that does 2 or 3 points of damage. They also have a Tidal Blast attack that can move the target 4 inches and make a scheme marker if you get the Mask trigger. Their Hardened Husk tactical action is just like the Silent Sirens, but with a reposition trigger that can move them 3 inches. I'll take a brief moment now to thank all those who were patrons at the time this video was made, especially Mats by Mars, Griff, Suttergay, Tom, Alan, James, Jason, Jeremy, Christian, Mikolai, Oleg, and Travis, and many more at the free student tier. Your support is essential to bringing these videos to life. The second version of the Silken King, Colossus, comes with the Coronation crew card. You'll see something new on this card in that it specifies that Banished models in this crew who are not peons get the You Are Honored ability. That's because this version of the crew introduces the Gift of Thorns peon models, and we'll talk about them in a few minutes. All other Banished models can summon a Gift of Thorns near an enemy model after attacking it and receiving a raise. The next action on the card is Cruel Promises. All unique Banished models in the crew, so not the peons or the minions, get this attack that drains a soulstone to use. This targets a model with a Wreathed Upgrade, which is something else we'll explore in a minute, does 2 damage, and then lets you control an action that model takes. Once that is over, the target makes a willpower duel to shake off the upgrade. This crew card doesn't use any unusual tokens, so let's look at the peon models, the Gift of Thorns. Be sure to review the rules for peon models currently on page 45 of the Comprehensive Rules Guide because they don't play like most other models. These little guys have a model limit of 3, so you'll never have more than 3 on the table at one time. They are short-lived, so that likely won't be a problem. Take note that they have a speed stat of 8, and the unimpeded ability means they aren't affected by severe or hazardous terrain. They'll really be able to scuttle about the table, but as peons, they get only 1 regular action and 1 signature action per activation. To get some extra mileage out of them, they have the Made to Kill ability that says they get to take a free melee attack action after being placed. That won't matter if they walk or charge, but these guys will usually be placed by a summon, so that'll be 1 free attack every time they come to the table. Their sole attack action defines their whole existence. The Joining has a 3-inch range and places the Gift of Thorns into base contact with the target model as part of declaring the action, as signified by the italics. That means that after they finish this first attack, they can declare the attack again with their Made to Kill ability as long as the Gift of Thorns is still around. The attack does 1 damage if successful, and then attaches a Wreathed Upgrade and kills the Gift of Thorns. Since it's a peon, you don't infuse a soulstone when it dies, and it doesn't leave a remains marker. We don't know exactly what these models look like, but the idea is that the model becomes the upgrade you attach to the enemy model. With the You Are Honored ability from the Coronation crew card, every banished model in the crew, except for the Gift of Thorns themselves, can summon a Gift of Thorns by getting a raise when attacking an enemy model, so they might come and go a lot. So let's look at those upgrades. Each Wreathed Upgrade has 2 abilities. One is, Get it off, get it off, get it off, which lets another model friendly to the one with the upgrade take the Interact action to remove the upgrade. The model with the upgrade cannot do this itself, so it can be handy to put these upgrades on models that are isolated from their crewmates. The Temptation upgrade has Powers Temptation, which puts a negative modifier on the model's willpower duels and prevents it from cheating. Call to the Depths has Seeking Dark Water, which lets the banished player move the model up to 5 inches when the model activates. Siphon Power has Serve the Throne, which does 2 damage to the model with the upgrade when it activates, and heals the Silken King too. The 4th Wreathed upgrade is Divulge Secrets with the Loose Lips ability. This lets members of the banished crew who are within 6 inches of the model with the upgrade take tactical actions that are printed on its card as long as they don't summon, list another model by name, or attach an upgrade. Also remember that anything printed on the crew card counts as being printed on the model's card, so if there's a tactical action from the crew card, you could do that too. All these upgrades will make this crew challenging to play with since you have to keep track of additional abilities on your opponent's models and figure out the best times to leverage those, but they will add an exciting layer of gameplay to this version of the Silken King. Now, let's look at him. The Silken King, Colossus, is a big size 3 model on a 50mm base. He has Resilient, but also Adapted to Crushing Darkness, which lets him drain a soulstone to reduce damage he suffers by 2, all the way to 0 if possible. His 3rd ability, Drawn to Pain, moves the Silken King up to 3 inches toward the model that damaged him, but since it says up to 3, you could say you move him 0 inches and just leave him where he is. Also note that if you reduce the damage he suffers to 0 with Adapted to Crushing Darkness, you won't get any free movement with this ability. Crushing Depths does 4 damage, and if you attack a model with a Wreathed upgrade and get a mask in the duel, you can discard that upgrade to take this attack again. Ouch. The Crow trigger can give an Injured token, which can play into Silken King's Tidal Wave attack. This does 2 damage, might damage nearby models, and the Ram trigger lets him remove the Injured token for 2 more damage. Going back to moving models around, the Mask trigger moves the target 3 inches. Unshackled drains a soulstone and can be used only once per activation, and it simply places him anywhere within 6 inches. Keep in mind that it doesn't say completely within 6 inches, so with his 50mm base, you can really get nearly 8 inches of movement out of this. Placing also does not require line of sight, so that opens up a few options too. Lastly, the Silken King has the familiar hardened husk and its shielded tokens, but his triggers can move the target, which can still be the Silken King himself, 3 inches, or give a free attack against a model with a Wreathed Upgrade. Abyssal Anchor is the Colossus Silken King's totem. It's a little size 1 model, but has an impressive stat 7 for both defense and speed. With its Scuttle ability, it can take the walk action whenever an attack against it fails. Remember that if you try to walk away from engagement, your speed is cut in half. Its Anchor ability is even more interesting. This lets other Banished models and its crew target models with Wreathed Upgrades, drawing range and line of sight from Abyssal Anchor. So with its speed and Scuttle ability, you can have this guy moving all over the table and getting close to enemy models with the Wreathed Upgrades, just to have all your other models attack that model during their activations. If you have a scheme or strategy that requires wounding or killing a certain model, this can be a devastating way of achieving that. This model has the Claws melee attack that does 2 damage and has the regular raise value of 5, but it does double damage for every raise, which is pretty nasty. And don't forget you can summon a Gift of Thorns with the You Are Honored ability on the crew card. The Void Tide magical attack is also cool, doing 2 damage. Every raise this attack gets removes a token from the target, so it's a nice way of stripping away shielded, hastened, or other helpful tokens. Since this is an attack action, you cannot use this on friendly models, but the raise can summon a Gift of Thorns. The Dark Bargain tactical action can be used on any Banished model in the crew, even Abyssal Anchor itself, doing 1 damage and allowing the target to interact, but the regular rules of interact apply, so you can't do it if you're engaged, or used walk to leave engagement this activation. Each of the 2 triggers can give a helpful token, so that's something nice to work for. The other tactical action is Tap the Leyline, which drains a Soulstone to draw 2 cards and discard 1. Dynast Bram is the henchman of the Banished keyword, and will probably look like a swashbuckling pirate with a spiny urchin cape, just judging by his abilities and actions. Regal Swordsman lets him discard a shielded token to basically empower a duel when making an attack. He gets a positive modifier and the suit of his choice, so it's kind of better than regular empowering. Cloak of Spines is defensive in its nature, giving an injured token to a model that fails in making an attack against him. It does not specify what kind of attack, so this would apply to melee, missile, and magical attacks, but only once per activation. Ancestral Blade does 3 damage, but the Mask trigger can move Dynast Bram 3 inches. The Maim trigger gives an injured token, and the Tome trigger can summon a Gift of Thorns, even if you already got one from a raise in the duel. Biting Insult can be a signature action and does only 1 damage. A raise on this won't increase that damage since this is a magical attack, but it can summon a Gift of Thorns from the You Are Honored ability, and it makes a scheme marker touching the target, which can be up to 6 inches away. A Mask in the duel places Dynast into base contact with the target, and the Tome built into the skill summons a Gift of Thorns, just like with his Ancestral Blade. Weak All of You is an interesting tactical action that can be used only once per activation. The intent is surely to let Dynast help another Banished model, but the card presently says Engaged Ally Only, and since every model is allied with itself, this can be used on Dynast if he is currently engaged by an enemy model. As intended, you do 1 damage to the targeted model, that's the Banished model you want to help, and place Dynast in base contact with one of the enemy models engaging that target model, if there's more than 1 enemy model. Then, Dynast gets to use his Ancestral Blade on that enemy model, receiving a positive modifier in that attack. If Dynast himself were engaged and used this action on himself, he'd suffer 1 damage, could place anywhere in base contact with the model engaging him, and then attack with the positive modifier on his Ancestral Blade. This seems like a weird way of doing things, but if you do this first, you get the positive modifier on that attack, which can take the place of regular empowering or his Regal Swordsman ability. If he spends a Soul Stone when he makes this attack for the Show You How It's Done trigger, his following attacks will get +1 damage. That would apply to both his Ancestral Blade and his Biting Insult, so maybe it's not so weird after all. The next model is the Coronator of the Crown, and I'll be the first to admit I hope they change this name. While Coronator is the title of the person who puts a crown on a monarch's head, it's also another word for coroner, which is like a medical examiner. Either way, Coronator of the Crown seems a little redundant to me, and I think Wyrd should change this to something like the Crown Bearer, or even just the Coronator. Anyway, the Coronator does not have Resilient like the other Banished models, so be sure you don't accidentally play like he does. You'll use his Slither Off ability only once in the game, after he completes his activation in turn 1. Once he's done, you summon all 3 Gift of Thorns models within an inch. Later, when a nearby enemy model has a Wreathed Upgrade and cheats Fate or empowers a duel, you'll use the Under 1 Crown ability to do 1 damage to that model. Lastly, but listed first on his card, the Coronator has the Scatter Demise ability you'll use when the Coronator is killed. When that happens, summon 3 Gift of Thorns models within 3 inches of it before you remove it from the table. Remember that these have a model limit of 3, so if you already have 1 or 2 on the table, you can summon only 2 or 1. The Coronator has only 1 attack action, which does 2 damage, but has a raise value of 3. Remember, you can summon a Gift of Thorns when you get a raise thanks to the Crew card. Of course, this attack also has a tome built into the skill to guarantee the A Generous Gift trigger, which also summons a Gift of Thorns. The Crow trigger is also handy if your target already has a Wreathed Upgrade, in that you can remove one of them to make 2 scheme markers. The first tactical action, Heavy as the Crown, can be used only once per activation and drains a Soulstone. This summons 1 or 2 Gift of Thorns models within 3 inches of the enemy model you target with this, and their Made to Kill ability lets each of them make an attack since summoning is a place action. While Heavy as the Crown can be used only on an enemy model, the Coronator's other tactical action, Lost to the Depths, can be used only on allied models, which can include the Coronator itself. This heals the Banished model too, and removes 1 token if you want to. You increase the healing for each raise, but this does not summon a Gift of Thorns with the You Are Honored ability, because that specifically applies to attack actions. The Mask trigger moves the target towards a model with a Wreathed Upgrade, and the Tome trigger lets the target attack the Wreathed model, but you can still declare only 1 trigger at a time. The last model in the crew is the Crowned. You can have 3 of these minions on the table at a time, and they also have the Under 1 Crown and Demise Scatter abilities that the Coronator has, but their Demise ability summons only 1 Gift of Thorns instead of 3. The tricky ability on these guys is Don't Turn Your Back. This says that enemy models that activate engaged by the Crowned cannot take the Interact action until the end of their activations. Now, the rules of Interact make this sound like a pointless ability since you can't interact while engaged, and if you use Walk to leave engagement, you still can't interact during that activation. Well, some models have abilities like Don't Mind Me that let them interact while engaged. Others have special movement effects like we've seen on some Banished models where they get to place themselves outside of engagement. That's not the Walk action, so they would normally be allowed to interact. The Don't Turn Your Back ability overrides all of those. If an enemy model activates engaged by the Crowned, it cannot take the Interact action during that activation at all. It says, until the end of their activation, just in case Wyrd writes in some rare game effect that specifically says the model can take the Interact action after completing its activation. They have the Elder Tide melee attack with a 3-inch range that does 1 damage, though raises will increase that and summon a Gift of Thorns model thanks to the You Are Honored ability from the Crew card. There is a trigger for every suit, and the tome built into the skill guarantees you can summon a Gift of Thorns even without a raise. The To the Pools at Last tactical action is the Crown's only signature action, and it can be taken only once per activation. It does 1 damage to the Crowned, and then places it within 6 inches. Remember that you do not need line of sight for place actions, and if you get a tome when you reach your target number, you can make a scheme marker after you place the model. So that's our overview of the beta release Banished models. They may change before their final release later this year, but let us know what you think about them in the comments below and in our Discord. If you haven't already, join our Patreon for early, ad-free access to all new long-form content. And be sure to visit the Malifaux University gift shop for the latest in Malifaux-themed shirts, hoodies, drinkware, and more. Links are in the notes below. And remember, play friendly games, keep it simple, and have fun.